All right, I'm here with Coach Tyson Chartier at Combat Zone 75 in Boston. We don't usually get to hold fights in Boston, right? I mean, people that don't know, they're not from here. We have a good scene in New England, but it's usually outside of the city. So is it cool for you to kind of be here and have some guys on the card in Boston?
Yeah, and it's cool. The first MMA show at the Encore Resort Casino here. I know years ago when this first got announced that they were coming, everybody's like, who's going to do MMA shows there? And it's cool that it's Calvin that gets to do it first.
Yeah, and St. Patrick's Day, too.
Yeah, I mean, St. Patrick's Day in Boston is big, so I expect some rowdy fans filling up these seats in a couple hours.
Yeah, I was joking. This is like the most Irish-American thing I can do is go to a casino in Boston and watch fist fights. But anyways, man, you know, the cartel's rolling. You guys just recently announced the main event, April 30th, Rob Font versus Chito Vera. Talk to me about how this fight came together, because I think it maybe surprised people a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it surprised us too. You know, we're always in the gym. We train year-round, and then we just kind of ramped it up on camps. And the UFC called. They said they didn't have a main event for April 30th. Chito had been bugging them for a fight. They said, "Are you guys ready?" And I called Rob. Me, him, and his girl talk. That's kind of how we make those decisions, and we all felt it made sense. And we just in January kicked off the year with a number 5 versus number 8. We had some good luck, so let's do it again April 30th, and hopefully we have the same luck.
And I said it's like the fight nobody was expecting, but nobody can really complain. I think that as the lights go out and back on, I think that fans are excited for it. I think it should be a banger. Timeline-wise, was this a little sooner than maybe you guys wanted, or?
Yeah, we were ideally thinking late May and June time frame, kind of just heal some lumps from the last fight. But everything was healing ahead of schedule anyway, so it made sense. We always kind of go with our gut when we get those calls, and if it didn't make sense, we would have said no. And Rob's healthy enough, jump into camp, and he's always training anyway. So now it's just a matter of it was 7 weeks and 2 days that we had to train for a fight. And at this level, it's like if you can't be ready for a fight in 7 weeks and 2 days with no injuries, it's kind of like that's what's wrong with a lot of the divisions, because everybody's saying no, it has to be perfect. You're not going to get perfect. We always say it's timing, opponent, and location. It's like Rob is Mr. Vegas. 7 weeks is good enough, and we love the opponent.
Yeah, and he's not fighting in December, which is nice too. I feel like that's what always ends up happening. But I was trying to think too, as well, from a coaching perspective. When was the last time one of those guys took a shorter notice fight? Because I feel like I was trying to think on the top of my head. Has there been an instance?
Yeah, it was Fight Island main event against Dan Ige. We took that on exactly 1 month. I think Sean reached out and called me June 15th and said, hey, we have a main event. I think it was July 16th or whatever, July 15th, whatever it was. Just coming off a fight May 9th against Jeremy Stevens. So, yeah, that was a short notice fight, but it was short notice for Dan too, because he had just fought a few days after us, so it was equal on that one. So short notice fights like that, they're not really short notice because you're both getting the same notice. So I don't think this is short notice for either one of us. I think Chito's been probably begging for a fight, so he's probably maybe a little bit more ramped up than we were going into this. But like I said, Rob's always in the gym, and we turn that light switch on when it comes to being in camp, and things come together real quick.
And I think Rob's obviously in the position of, as we're seeing behind you there, he's kind of in the position where he's a contender now. Everybody looks at the top 5 of this division, top 6, he's going to be there. Chito's kind of taken that step now. So do you feel like he's a guy that should be in that conversation? Is he somebody that you guys kind of viewed as one of the elite in the division, even though maybe he hasn't had this sort of matchup yet?
Our job is to be who they put in front of us, number 5, number 8, number 3, whatever. We just lost to Aldo, but we're going to turn around and we're going to beat the number 8 guy. And that keeps you where your spot is at number 5 and shows that you're still a contender. Reality is we're coming off a loss against Aldo. It was a tough fight. We learned a lot in that one, but we still did really good. So there was a lot of stuff that we took away from that fight that were positives for Rob, mentally and physically, and as a team. We just fought a legend, and we had our moments in that fight. And you look at Chito, it's like, we can't come off a loss and say, oh, no, we're number 5, we're not going to fight the number 8 guy. Our job is to go and dismantle the number 8 guy and show that that's why we're number 5.
And I think in that fight, kind of from a coach perspective, what do you think kind of went wrong for you guys? Because I think things were going well, it seemed like, in each round individually until they didn't. He would have a big moment. So how do you kind of incorporate that and tweak things for this fight?
I always say at this level, it's whoever makes the first mistake, and we were doing really good. We were popping off on the game plan. We were landing our shots. I think we were wearing Aldo down, and then we kind of hesitated for a second, and we gave him a moment to go big, and he landed a perfect shot. And we knew that was a possibility. It's just, unfortunately, it happened when it did. He landed the perfect shot. Sometimes those shots don't hurt you. Sometimes those shots, that's what happens. Then you break your orbital in the first round and lose a round that you won. And I think my sister had said it best. If every round was 4 minutes and 30 seconds, we won that fight. But every round's 5 minutes, so it's tough. We just made the first mistake, and he capitalized.
Yeah, and I got to ask you about Calvin too, being this is his promotion and he's not booked right now. So I guess what kind of options do you see for him next? Looking at that division, there's a lot of guys that are tied up. You got Josh Emmett, who's I think not booked, ahead of him, and then you got Arnold Allen and Dan Hooker tomorrow. You guys just kind of waiting to see how things play out? Or are you hoping to get booked soon?
We're ahead of Josh. We're 5, he's 6. So yeah, no, really. Calvin's got that mentality. He doesn't care who he fights, and you saw that he fought down against Ige, he fought up against Max, fought down against Giga. So now it's like, if you look at the pattern, we should have a chance to fight up, but ultimately that's up to the UFC. If they're going to do Yair versus Ortega, then that leaves us and Emmett or someone else. Allen's fighting this weekend coming up. If he gets a win or Hooker gets a win, like that's kind of a. Allen would be 9 fights in a row. Hooker would be he's reestablished himself as a contender in back at 145. So that's an exciting fight that's out there too. So, we just got to see what happens this weekend, how the cards fall, and then what direction the UFC wants to go. Because at the end of the day, we could say who we want to fight. If the UFC doesn't want to make that fight or the other team doesn't want to make that fight, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. And would he be willing to, if they call tomorrow, start getting into that mode, or is he looking to wait a little while?
Yeah, no, we told the UFC we're ready in June. They reached out and they said, hey, we're trying to kind of dial in, see where everybody's at. And we said ideally we'd like to wait till June to fight. Not wait till June, but we'll be ready in June to fight. That last fight was a 5-round banger. Fortunately, he came out super healthy after that fight, but he's dealing with this stuff, and he's got another show April 16th, so the June timeframe works perfect for him.
Nice, man. And I got to ask you, I've withheld this question because the pandemic was going on and there's so much stuff going on in the world. We didn't know what next week was going to bring. But now that things are established, we're holding events here. Do you think that the UFC will ever come back to Boston? Is that something you guys have the 1-2 punch. That could be easy, fight night with Calvin and Rob as the headliners.
They better come back to Boston, or Dana can't say he's from Boston anymore if he's going to dodge our city. You can't go to Columbus and Nebraska or Portland and all those if you're not going to come back to Boston. I think every time we've had a fight here, it's been a banger of a night. We can load that card up with New England guys now, and I think Calvin and Rob have paid their dues. They fight whoever you ask them to fight, whenever you ask them to fight. They put on exciting fights. Even when they lose, it's fight of the night. We earn the right to have a New England Cartel co-headliner. So I think it'd be fun. Main event, co-main event. I don't know which one's the main event. Maybe we'll flip a coin, but I think that would be kind of a dream come true for Boston, for New England as a whole, and obviously the Cartel and what we've been doing with Rob and Calvin the last few years.
Yeah, long overdue. Not that I'm biased or anything, but 2 years ago, if I had brought up this next person's name, I think this person's name wouldn't have been brought up. But Parker Porter is just rolling, man. You know what I mean? He's kind of a budding heavyweight rising fighter through the pandemic. What have you thought of him and kind of the success, and how happy have you seen him, as his manager?
Yeah, it's awesome, man. It's I actually signed Parker right before the pandemic hit. And, we've been talking for a while, and we finally decided, let's figure this out, And I think the pandemic was a blessing for him, not to be crude, but, the pandemic opened an opportunity for him to get on a fight short notice. He went in there, he didn't win that first fight, but that loss aged well, A lot of guys have lost to Dawkins now. No shame in losing to him. And then he rattled off 3 in a row, and he's in pretty exciting fights. He's a couple slobber knockers. That last fight, was more strategic. He had to get those takedowns to win, and yeah, man, if you said 2 years ago would Parker Porter be on a 3-fight win streak in the UFC, I think nobody would have believed you because of his age and because he's been around and this and that. But, this is why I do this. You get to see that kid go home to his 2 sons. They're, 9-year-old twins, his little baby Charlie and his wife, and Daddy won. And it's cool. That's why you do this. There's so many more stories like Parker Porter that no one's really talking about than all the drama that's in the news. And then, that's why I do this. It's cool. It's cool seeing him, go from trying to make ends meet as a personal trainer and figuring things out to now he's on a 3-fight win streak in the UFC.
Yeah, that's fantastic, man. And what else you got coming up? I know Carlos Candelario, April 30th, right?
Yep.
Who else do you have?
A lot of non-UFC guys. We got CES April 1st, XMMA. I got 3 guys on that card April 2nd, and then both Rob and Carlos on April 30th. So it's really not anything we're thinking about past April 30th at this point. So it's another 5-6 weeks of just every day of doing this every day. 2 days, 6 days a week, driving to Maine, driving to Mass, everywhere. It's just, it's not a lot of family time right now. And after April 30th, I owe my wife some alone time and my kids some playtime.
And I've known you for a few years now, and I think you've always been somebody to kind of put it on your fighters, talk about your fighters in these interviews. But for you, do you feel like that you're kind of living out your dream to a certain degree here too? I know it's busy, you're doing all this stuff, but do you ever take a step back and kind of think I've made a life for myself a little bit too?
Yeah, it's my goal was to just help the fighters one decision or action at a time, and cumulatively over time, that turned into me, living my dream here. I travel around the world with fighters and get to walk out on ESPN. The 12-year-old in me that used to watch the ESPN Top 10 every day, and now we're headlining cards on ESPN, and and I'm doing it with my best friends. I'm going to get some of the best coaches in the world, best fighters in the world, and I feel like we're executing and we're where we belong. Like, we earned this position through just the vision that we had, the trust that we all have in each other, and then bringing in the best coaches like, Jake behind me and Dupree, our wrestling coach, guys like that. Like, yeah, I don't feel like I work a day ever. So it's like, I definitely feel blessed, and, my in-laws won't agree. They'll think I don't have a job because I love it so much, but, I love what I do, and, freaking beat sitting at a desk all day working in tech sales, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, for sure. And do you feel like that you just kind of, listening to you talk, you kind of talk about how you guys are very close and very family-oriented, and I think that that's something that's maybe a little bit different about you. It's kind of like the old-school boxing sort of scene. Like, you have Rob and Calvin and a couple other guys, but that's it for you. Do you feel like that that's kind of the secret to your success to a certain degree? And this is not a dig at, there's big gyms out there all over the world that have 50 fighters, but do you feel like that just for your success that that's been kind of a key?
Yeah, I think if you look at some of the best fighters that are out there, they have those close-knit relationships with their coaches. I'm not going to name names, but then you see some of the other fighters out there at the same camps, and they don't have the same relationship. It's like, to reach that highest point, which we haven't even reached as high as we want to get yet, you have to have that personal relationship. You have to be there for the lows. You have to, in order to really, really appreciate the highs. Like, you can't go through like these fight camps and not have it be super personal and emotional. And my kids call these guys uncle. It's that doesn't happen in a big camp for the most part. I feel like the way that we decided to start the cartel and execute and how we train, it's a lot of coaches from big camps now are asking me like, hey, how do you run camps, this and that. Like, used to be a few years ago I'd be like, hey, what do you do in this? And now I feel like I finally got to that level where they're like, okay, let's ask Tyson, because they respect what we're doing. Like, success doesn't lie. Like, these guys are executing in there, and it's not just one guy, it's multiple, and then we get the young guys underneath him kind of doing the same thing. So I think it's super rewarding to see some of these people that I used to look at as like role models now feel like equals, and like have them ask me my opinion on things too. And I think that just, it's the hard work and success and that family atmosphere that I really think does pull it all together.
Sometimes you see, with bigger gyms, somebody like will be an assistant coach, American Top Team, they'll branch off. But for you, I feel like you kind of went from being a fighter, kind of being engulfed in the MMA scene, and then all of a sudden you kind of take over this leadership role and you kind of build yourself from the ground up. So have you always had that kind of like that IQ, that smarts, the mental side of things, or was that something that you kind of had to study and build and you just happened to kind of build yourself as a coach?
I think it was just all happenstance. Like, I saw a problem and I fixed it. Like, it just, coincidentally, I was a few years older than these guys and I saw what they weren't getting. So I was like, oh, let me fill that hole. Let me do this. Let me help out. I was just trying to help my friends. And then next thing you know, like, I'm the one watching video. I'm the one cornering them in fights. I'm the one driving them to weigh-ins. And then you build trust over that. They look around. Like, it's easy to see after a loss who's in the room with you. It's easy to see who's also there after a win. And then you see who's there on the wins and not on the losses. And, like, you put it all together and it's like, you see who your real circle is, and like that, just I earned that over time, and it's tough, man, because there's so many ways to do this, and this is how we do it. But the amount of trust that we've built over time, it wasn't on accident, but it wasn't necessarily. I can't say like 10 years ago I said, oh, here's our plan. I can say 5 years ago, or 4.5 years ago when we broke off, this was the plan, But that was only allowed to happen because of the work I put in for the 5 years before that, when I wasn't called a coach and I wasn't anything. I was just the teammate trying to help.
Because for people that don't know, you were originally a fighter. You fought pro.
Not a very good one. I was working full-time in tech sales. I was working like Oracle and all that. I was working a 9 to 6 and then training after work and then trying to like pretend I knew how to fight. But it's all led me to where I'm at now. Like, I know, like, in between those 4th and 5th rounds, and I asked them to dig deep, they know I've been there, like they know I'm doing strength and conditioning with these guys. Like, there's nothing that, like, I feel like I have a huge advantage because I've been through the mental battles of a weight cut and all that stuff. So there's like just how to manage the vibe in a room or throughout the whole camp, how to manage the egos of coaches and other training partners and make sure that everybody's winning together. So like on some teams you see when one guy wins, the other guy gets kind of jealous. Like when these guys like lose, the other person feels it just as bad. When they win, the other person feels it just as good.
Cool. Cool, man. All right, well, I know you got some stuff to do tonight, but I appreciate the time, Tyson. Good luck tonight, and we'll be talking, man.
Thanks, bro.